For haemophiliacs, the turning point in their lives was the British discovery of factor VIII concentrate. It is derived from plasma, the straw-coloured liquid which carries the red and white blood cells through the body. The traditional method of collecting plasma is from the voluntary blood donation sessions held in factories up and down the country. The red cells are used by hospitals for blood transfusions. The plasma is extracted and sent for processing into blood products like factor VIII. Because it comes from volunteer donors, in only a handful of cases has there been contamination with AIDS. The plasma is frozen after collection and sent to the laboratory at Elstree, north of London, which supplies 40% of the needs of England and Wales. Scotland has its own laboratory and does not import factor VIII. Factor VIII revolutionized life for the haemophiliac. He became his own doctor. He could treat himself at home. Only in emergency does he need hospital treatment. Factor VIII became a passport to a more normal life previously denied to haemophiliacs.
That's it.
Well, I now lead virtually a normal life. I travel wherever I want. I've been to all sorts of parts of the world that you would never even dream of going to in the old days, because you can carry the treatment material with you. And when a bleed starts, I treat it. It takes about half an hour by the time I've got the stuff out, made it up, injected it, cleared up, I go back to whatever I was doing before.
I earn my living. I have a social life, same as everybody else, without having to worry about whether I should do something in case I have a bleed. That no longer applies.
The supply of factor VIII began in 1969. But soon Britain could not collect sufficient plasma to produce enough. In the early 70s, the government started to import it from the United States and Austria. By 1975, imported factor VIII exceeded British supplies. A World in Action investigation in 1975 revealed that American factor VIII carried a high health risk because it was mainly made from the plasma of paid donors. Much of it was bought on the skid rows of America's big cities, from drug addicts, alcoholics, and down and outs, all with a high risk of carrying the liver disease, hepatitis. More recently, many of the donors have come from the groups most affected by AIDS. But even before the AIDS epidemic, British doctors were concerned about the source of the plasma for imported factor VIII. Many felt they still had to prescribe it because Britain failed to make enough. In Newcastle, Dr. Peter Jones pioneered the use of American factor VIII.
We had to. We had no choice. This is in retrospect, again, this is a catch-22 situation. We either imported or we didn't treat our haemophiliacs. And if you look at haemophiliacs in developing countries that have no factor VIII, it is appalling. I mean, 2/3 of them are dead before they reach their third decade, and the rest of them are lucky to survive without really severe and painful arthritis.
Another long-standing supporter of the use of imported factor VIII is Dr. Geoffrey Savage of St Thomas's Hospital in London.
To remove treatment or to restrict treatment in these patients is to take away their independent lifestyle, their possibility of gaining employment and holding down employment, their possibilities of having a family, and of being able to offer a sensible contribution to society.
Because of concern about hepatitis, Labour Health Minister David Owen announced in 1975 a £500,000 programme to boost plasma collection. He pledged that Britain would be self-sufficient in factor VIII by 1977.
Well, it can only be as fast as buildings can be set up and equipment purchased. When I made the decision now, some time ago, it was thought that it would take us 3 years. We brought it down to 2 years, and maybe we can improve even on that. I've tried to make this switch to self-sufficiency as quickly as possible.
But by 1977, Britain had failed to meet the target of self-sufficiency and was importing even more factor VIII than ever. With no further investment, imports were more than double the amount produced in Britain by 1980. Still not enough plasma was being collected, but the plant at Elstree was also too small to meet the demand. So in 1980, as a stopgap measure, the Conservative Health Minister Gerard Vaughan announced £1.25 million plan to double British production. Despite the ever-rising demand for factor VIII, he saw no need for major expansion.
You either have to pull the whole building down and rebuild it totally, which I think would be unnecessary and a waste of money, or you have to change them steadily, and that is what we're doing. And I'm very proud of what we do at Elstree.
However, with British production of factor VIII still lagging behind, the Conservative government's view changed in 1982. A £21 million plan was announced for a new plant at Elstree. The aim, once again, self-sufficiency, this time by 1985, to finally eliminate risky imports. But the decision came too late for British haemophiliacs. The first case of the deadly new disease, AIDS, was identified in the United States in 1978. Before long, British haemophiliacs had been infected by the AIDS virus transmitted through high-risk donors. This exposure to infection continued until this year, when the use of heat treatment made factor VIII probably AIDS-free. But by then, most haemophiliacs had been exposed to factor VIII, contaminated with AIDS. Today, Britain imports 60% of its factor VIII. It buys from 5 companies, 4 American, 1 Austrian. US government documents obtained by World in Action reveal that 3 of the American companies have withdrawn blood products on 5 occasions since 1983 because a plasma donor had AIDS. On October the 31st, 1983, Cutter Laboratories in San Francisco issued an urgent drug recall for a batch of factor VIII. The reason? The above lots contain plasma donated from an individual who subsequently was diagnosed as having acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS. The donor, a 30-year-old homosexual male, donated 50 times through September 16, 1983. He died in October 1983. This factor VIII had been sold nationwide and in foreign countries. Cutter denied this batch was sent to Britain. On August 30, 1984, Alpha Therapeutic in Los Angeles issued an important market withdrawal for the second time that year. The reason? A donor of source plasma was diagnosed as having AIDS. The donor sold plasma 19 times. Alpha records showed that the products were distributed to foreign accounts located in England, Federal Republic of Germany, and Austria. The suspect factor VIII had been distributed by Alpha Therapeutic UK Limited, 12 Buckingham Street, London. Alpha would not say how much had been sold here, or if the foreign sales of the factor VIII they withdrew in January 1984 had also been to Britain.
When you collect plasma from multiple donors, you only need 1 or 2 donors to be infected with a particular virus to contaminate the whole pool. And the commercial products are obtained from up to 30,000 donations of plasma. The National Health Service factor VIII concentrate is obtained from upwards of 3,500. So just in that fact alone, one has a difference in magnitude of exposure.
The AIDS epidemic has spread like no other in recent years. In the United States, 11,300 cases have been reported so far. In the United Kingdom, 176. Already there have been 5,600 deaths in America and 83 deaths in Britain. Wherever American factor VIII has been used, haemophiliacs have become AIDS victims. In the United States, 80 cases. In Europe, 23. In Britain, 7. AIDS is incurable. In the United States, 42 haemophiliacs have already died. In Britain, so far, 5 deaths. But the magnitude of the threat is only now starting to become clear. Hospital tests on 2,000 patients with severe haemophilia have shown that half to 3/4 have been infected by the AIDS virus. In Newcastle upon Tyne, 30 of Dr. Jones's 96 patients have possible AIDS symptoms, and 3 have already died from AIDS. We asked him how many more British haemophiliacs were likely to die.
Well, if you take it at its lowest level, 100 are going to get AIDS. If you take it at the highest level, which is the level for male homosexuals in the United States, then perhaps 200 of them will get AIDS.